Singer George Michael passed away at the age of 53. His partner indicated that he died as a result of heart failure. Now, of course, George Michael is best known for songs like Careless Whisper, which is one of my favorite songs of all time because that saxophone, though. But what's also incredible about him is, the fact that he courageously, raised awareness about sexuality, about his own sexuality. He got caught in a few salacious incidents, but he never really backed away from who he was, which is admirable to say the least. Now, Michael's coming of age as a gay man, and this is a great piece that was written about him in NPR. Michael's coming of age as a gay man coincided with his artistic maturity, the way Motown acts like Wonder and Marvin Gaye grew as musicians while writing about their blackness. Neither he nor they could separate one from the other. The rising AIDS death toll in the 80s and the early 90s and the homophobia it inspired shaped Michael's solo career almost exactly the same way racism and the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. inspired much of Wonder and Gaye's greatest work. I thought that was just a really powerful thing to say about him, so I wanted to relay it.
Yeah, so the writer here, Barry Walters, of course, knows this industry a lot better than I do. I know very little about music, and I didn't know much about George Michael. But I was amused to see all the things that he had known all along that I had no idea about. And I was also amused by my own cluelessness. First of all, I like that he said he always had swarthy good looks.
Yeah, I didn't know. It's like a weird backhanded compliment. Yeah. But to be fair, Barry Walters very clearly loved George Michael, so he didn't mean it to be a negative thing.
I guess that's the maximum I can go for. Swarthy good looks. That's what I aspire to.
I think George Michael was hot.
Yeah, I didn't, but you see, that's why I brought it up, because when I was growing up, I had no idea that he was Greek. I didn't know his real name was Georgios Kyriakos Panagiatou, right? Some people had the common sense to change their name to something more pronounceable. Others did not. Okay, anyway, and I didn't think he had swarthy good looks. I just thought he
was good looking.
Just like the most normal, good looking American guy you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he said he set off gaydar upon impact. Apparently I didn't have one, because when he came out as gay, I was like, no! All the way in 1998, he's saying everybody knew in the 1980s, and he said he radiated homoeroticism.
In some of his lyrics and things like that.
Yeah,
which
and
I
then
found
he had cheeky critiques of heteronormative life.
Yeah.
This is what happened with those critiques. Whew, went right over my head.
It's because you're all about that heteronormative life.
Oh, yeah. Well, at the age of 13, I guess I was when he was writing these songs.
Yeah.
And then when he started explaining, when he was a leather-clad bad boy, I was like, oh yeah, the leather.
Yes. Huh. So what I found interesting about him was in the 80s, I mean, he didn't come out and just tell everyone like, hey, I'm gay, everyone, I'm gay. In fact, in the beginning, when he had a longtime female partner, he told her that he was bisexual. And he identified as bisexual, and then later on, he identified as gay. He was no longer interested in women. But that longtime female partner that he had, she was an Asian makeup artist, I believe. Interesting story about her. They were together. They were very much in love, and he had no idea that he was HIV positive. And so, since they were together, she also unfortunately got HIV and then developed AIDS and passed away. And that was a horrendous point in his life. Like, he really suffered and mourned that death. He said for 3 years straight, he couldn't even think straight. And then afterwards, he identified as gay and was open about it. Wasn't even trying to be wasn't trying to use innuendo or anything. He just came out and openly talked about it.
Yeah, and if you grew up in this era, and you're saying, well, why didn't he just say it? Why did he hide all that? And look at the consequences, etc. You don't understand, man. In the 1980s, if you said you were gay, your career was done, over, not even a question. Because the idiot executives who ran a lot of the entertainment industry were deeply conservative. Now, whatever their politics might have been individually is separated from what their business interests were. And their business interests were conservative. No, if you're a heartthrob, young teenage girls are into you, and you can't disappoint them by being gay. I mean, they put a world of pressure on Ricky Martin. That's a story, I was an adult for and understood it and saw it unraveling before my eyes. And for so long, he denied it when it was In fact, super obvious. Yet we can look back now, and as you know, the writer here again points out, the combination of eyeliner and stubble should have been a little bit obvious, but we didn't know, right?
Yeah.
And the girls didn't know back then, and they loved him. So, but later he became more and more independent, and he fought those executives. He fought Sony for 5.5 years. God, I'm so glad I'm terrible at music, because every story about the music industry is disastrous.
Yeah.
Every top artist fights the record companies for years and years and years. All the managers, not all of them to be fair, but a lot of them are super skeevy, take advantage of their acts not only financially but sometimes sexually.
Yes.
Jesus, like it is like one of the most corrupt industries there is. And there's all these artists who are these creative people with all this passion,
Yeah.
and they walk it right into that trap, right? So he fought through it, and he created some great art, even after some of the well-known hits that you and I are familiar with. So he will be missed, of course.
By the way, one quick note about George Michael and Careless Whisper. I wanted that to be our first song at my wedding, but the lyrics didn't really make sense. And I pushed for it and I pushed for it, and then eventually I conceded that it wasn't right. But I love that song.
Yeah, it's a great song.
Such a good song.
Now, okay, I'll tell you the goofy story I said on Facebook Live the other day. When George Michael first came out as gay, the first thing he said, from my recollection, is that he had sex with so many women that he got bored and decided to try guys. And I remember all my friends and I were like, high five. See, we never had that problem. We never got laid that much, so we never got to that issue.
Pretty sure it doesn't work that way.
There's a lot of things I learned in the meanwhile. It turns out it does not work that way.
Yeah.
And if it did, not that there's anything wrong.
Nothing wrong with it.
If you like this interview, become a member of the Young Turks, and you get the interviews before anyone else does. You get to watch them live. TYTnetwork.com/join.